Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Andrew Yang, and we're going to talk about Dave Chappelle and Dave Chappelle's endorsement of Andrew Yang. All right, so there's a few different elements to this, and this one's a little more personal than usual. All right, so let's jump right into this. Um, so let's talk about Dave Chappelle. Um, and so just in case anybody doesn't know who I'll define the terms here. All right, so of course we all love Andrew Yang. I don't need to define who Andrew Yang is. He's the next president of the United States of America. Dave Chappelle is an American comedian. He is historically important in American comedy. He is widely regarded as one of the best American comedians in history. He recently won the Mark Twain Award. He's a comedian's comedian. He is an incredible comedian. He's incredibly bright. He's incredibly intelligent. He had a show called the Dave Chappelle Show. Globally, it's globally famous. Dave Chappelle is famous for a lot of things. He's famous for being an incredibly smart, very, very funny comedian. He is famous for the Dave Chappelle Show, which was historically successful. It's, I think, without a doubt, it's probably the most successful Comedy Central show that's ever existed, right? Also, Dave Chappelle is famous for, I think the numbers were, when he left the Dave Chappelle Show, he had gotten a $50 million offer, and he left the Dave Chappelle Show and walked away from millions and millions and millions of dollars, and he disappeared out of celebrity for like a decade, and then he returned, at pretty much at actually he returned to a higher level. He returned at almost the same, if not a higher level of fame than when he had left a decade earlier. And so he's famous for that as well. Dave Chappelle is, oh, and by the way, he also is famous for the new double-digit, multi-million dollar, he got paid $60 million by Netflix to do a comedy series, right? I think it broke a record. I think no one has ever been paid more for a comedy special than Dave Chappelle's. Dave Chappelle's return to comedy was unprecedented and was paid more lucratively by Netflix than any comedian's return to comedy in the history of comedy ever. So this isn't hyperbole. He is an epic comedian. He's historically important among comedians, right? All right, so that's Dave Chappelle. That's who Dave Chappelle is. He's incredibly important, and he is a absolute rock star among comedians. I'm going to talk a little bit about my own personal history with Dave Chappelle's content. I've never met Dave Chappelle in person, but I do have a personal history with Dave Chappelle. I'm a huge fan. I watched his show every episode, and I was a really big fan of the Dave Chappelle. I became a fan of Dave Chappelle from the Dave Chappelle Show. And basically I've followed his career ever since, right? I saw him when he was on Oprah, and I've seen all of his comedy specials, and I also have listened to him on podcasts, and I go on and I listen to him when he talks on YouTube shows, and I consider him a philosopher king. Like I really like his comedy, but I will listen to him talk every time Dave Chappelle stands in front of a mic. I don't care if he's being funny or not. Like, I feel like every word that comes out of his mouth is worth listening to. Right, so I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of Dave Chappelle. And here's the thing. I want to say he's the best comedian on the planet, but it's close. Yes, I think it's tough. I have two favorite comedians. I think he's tied with Jim Gaffigan. I wish I could say he's better than Jim Gaffigan. Let's put it this way. I think Dave Chappelle is without a doubt far more funny than Jim Gaffigan. I also think Dave Chappelle is a lot smarter than Jim Gaffigan. The problem is, the reason why I rank Jim Gaffigan equal with Dave Chappelle is I'm an evangelical Christian, right? And so I can enjoy Jim Gaffigan's content with my family, where I cannot enjoy Dave Chappelle's content with anyone, right? Like, it's I have to sit there with my earphones on, sad and alone, when I listen to Dave Chappelle, because I can't share his content with anyone, right? So it's kind of unfortunate. I wish he was cleaner, right? And I think he's smart enough that he could be, but he chooses not to. He has the right to choose his own style. That's cool. I'm still a huge fan of him. I think I think he's tied for number one. But Jim Gaffigan and Dave Chappelle are my two favorite comedians in the world, bar none. Really love them. And Dave Chappelle, he's an amazing performer. And I also, like, I'm very, very serious about this. I really feel Dave Chappelle is a philosopher king. He is just an incredibly wise person. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in Dave Chappelle, and he shares it, right? When he goes on to podcasts, when he does, when he talks about certain things, he's very, very wise, and he's great. I think Dave Chappelle is fantastic. So I'm really glad Dave Chappelle has endorsed Andrew Yang, and I think it's really exciting that is going forward, right? All right, so that's my own personal history with Dave Chappelle and his content, right? Let's talk about comedy. I think comedy has an incredibly interesting relationship with politics. So one, get this, it's almost a certainty that every politician could be a comedian and that every comedian could be a politician. And the reason why is they're both the same job. You pick up a mic and you persuade people. In one, you persuade people to vote, and in the other, you persuade people to laugh. Right? Like, it's the same job, right? Like, you are doing the same thing. You just take a mic, you stand in front of a bunch of people, and you try to persuade them to do something. The only difference is what you were trying to persuade them to do, right? So I think comedy and politics are a hair's breadth away from each other, and I think that's really, really interesting, right? So now, one thing I think is really interesting about the Dave Chappelle endorsement is Dave Chappelle is Hollywood. Dave Chappelle is Hollywood. Dave Chappelle is Hollywood, right? Dave Chappelle was in the movie with Brad. I think it was called The Star. It just won an Oscar. It had Lady Gaga, and it had the guy who voices Rocket Raccoon. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name. I think it was called A Star. A Star is what? A Star is Born. My wife just told me. Thank you. So the movie's called A Star is Born, and Dave Chappelle was in that movie, right? That movie like won Oscars, right? So like, Dave Chappelle without a doubt is Hollywood, right? Now this is interesting. If you haven't noticed, I have not been talking a lot about celebrity endorsements, and the reason why, whenever you hear Scott Garibay not talking about something, it's because I'm still thinking about it, right? I try not to ignore subjects, right? If I'm not talking about something, there's a few reasons why. One, I often will skip a topic if it's too volatile. There are topics in politics that are so incredibly volatile that I don't want to wade into that, right? Because this is a hobby for me. This is not my profession, right? So the reality is I have to be careful about what I say in public, right? And so let's be totally candid about that, right? So there are some topics that are too volatile. So if I'm not addressing a subject, it's too volatile. So a lot of times I won't address the subject because it's too volatile. Another reason why I won't address the subject is because I'm still thinking about it. And I've been thinking a lot about celebrity endorsements, right? So I'm still thinking about celebrity endorsements, and the reason why I jumped in on this is I care so much about Dave Chappelle, right? The idea that Dave Chappelle has endorsed Andrew Yang is incredibly exciting to me, and I'm really, really, I'm so wonderfully excited by this, and I did want to share my thoughts with you on it, right? It's important. I think it's incredibly important, right? All right, so one, I think Hollywood is it's a bit of a problem, right? Like, the reality is, what is a Hollywood endorsement worth? I'm not sure we know the answer to that yet. I really don't, right? Because the reality is, I think Hollywood is deciding what it wants its relationship with politics to be. So one thing that's interesting is Hollywood has a real problem when it comes to politics. So one of the problems it has is it's one-sided, right? So essentially, there is virtually no relationship between Hollywood and the right. There only is a relationship between Hollywood and the left. That's a problem. That is a serious, serious problem, right? Correct. By the way, many of you have been telling me, stop saying right, Scott. I'm 100% aware of the problem. I'm going to try to continue to work on it, right? Correct? All right. So that's the issue is you have this situation where Hollywood is going forward and we're trying to determine right now what is the value of their endorsement, right? Or what is the value of their endorsement? By the way, the reason why I say right is every time I try to not say it, it gets worse. So I'm 100% aware of the problem, but when I focus on not doing it, it sounds so much worse. Sorry. All right. So here's where we're at. The Hollywood situation is that they are in a zone where they are deciding what their relationship with politics is going to be, right? Are they going to jump in and really make politics more than a speech point? That's a significant issue, right? How does art mix with politics? And if you have an entire industry that is completely aligned with one side of politics and has an almost antagonistic relationship with the entirety of the other side, it's tough, right? So the reality is, I'm not sure that Hollywood endorsements at the macro level are really useful, or if we know how committed, or if we know how long lasting, or if we know how genuinely useful they are. With that said, I think the Dave Chappelle endorsement is wonderfully exciting to Yang Gang. Okay, will it bring in votes? I'm not certain if it will. The reason why is I am such a huge Dave Chappelle fan, right? And that's one of the reasons why I'm not willing to say it's going to bring in a ton of votes. And the reason why is Dave Chappelle is a philosopher king and an incredibly smart and incredibly crafty daredevil comedian, right? And so the reality is, when you are looking at this, when you have a philosopher king who looks at all of the candidates and goes, this is the person, right? It's driving me crazy. See, this is why I say right, because it gets so much worse when I acknowledge it and stop trying to stop it. I apologize, but like 15 people have been telling me to stop saying right, and this is why I never try. Every time I try, it's a train wreck, just like it is in this video. My apologies. All right, yeah, okay, focus. All right, okay. So, oh jeez. All right, it's a verbal tick. I've tried a million things to get rid of this thing. I'm so sorry that this video went sideways with this one verbal tick. I've tried and tried to get rid of this thing, and I just can't get rid of it. All right, it is my kryptonite. Okay, so here we go. All right, that's my issue. Is I actually think Dave Chappelle endorsing Andrew Yang may not be a super awesome thing. It means that super awesome, super brilliant, the most intelligent people in the world see Andrew Yang. But it might be hard for everybody else to see him. And that may be a problem that we have really, 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 really have got to focus on and start to get around. Because Andrew Yang is brilliant, non-intuitive, amazingly awesome, and incredibly unique and weird and strange and brilliant. Like, he shines. He is radiant. And but maybe at a light frequency that can't be seen by all eyes. And so you would think that Dave Chappelle, one of my favorite comedians, oh hey, this is great, I'm all in, right? This is awesome. But it actually worries me a little bit. And the reason why is I really think Dave Chappelle is a philosopher king. And the fact that he's like, yeah, I see Yang. That's the best guy. He's the best person to take us into the future. Dave Chappelle he's an American treasure. And the fact that he is coming along, and also the fact that he's such a rogue. Like, he's such a privateer among Hollywood elites. It's actually a little worrisome. It's a little worrisome, right? I think it's fantastic that Dave is here, but I think it reinforces this idea that we've got to find new ways to take this brilliant, wonderful, awesome, truly unique, and very non intuitive treasure that we have and introduce him to the masses in ways that they can see him. Because sometimes, and this is one of those times, I think with Dave Chappelle, he is a reminder that Andrew Yang is vibrating at a frequency that's so unique and so unusual that I think a lot of people just don't even see or hear him. You know, it's just strange, right? Sorry, sorry. So that's my thought on the Dave Chappelle endorsement. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and if you have any ideas at all on how we take the uniqueness of Andrew Yang and continue to fold it out and present it to the masses in a way that's more productive than the way we've been approaching it, please share it in the comments below and let me know. I'd love to hear your ideas. Thank you very much for letting me share this a little more personal with you today. I apologize for my derailment on the right issue. Everyone who listens to this channel, I'm 100% aware of this problem. I've been told 100 times in the comments that I say right too much. I really have been trying to focus to get rid of the problem. It's a verbal tick. I wish I could get rid of it. I really struggle with it. And every time I try to fix it, it just goes sideways exactly like it did today. And then I don't know what to tell you. So thanks for your patience today. And have a wonderful millennium.